Hydeal. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend!
I finally updated the intro and the outro with all 10 heroes, and since we're out of the League of Evil, we went away from the henchmen, I used different portraits, like the 200 level portraits, or whatever portraits were the shortest sound bites, and I put them in the intro, and it's a lot of fun. Hello, and welcome to episode 304 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the better side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, August 12th, in the evening. From Gadgetan, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Karazhan, California, we've got Botticus.
Hello.
And from Nomergon, Cleveland, who has strong opinions about our new intro, it's Edelweiss.
Hello.
Change is hard, I know. But it has to happen at some point.
Means another audio file I need to keep track of.
It's just one more and one less. It's okay. And also everyone that left us reviews, and thank you so much for that. No new patrons this week, but everyone's too busy playing Hearthstone. So, let's talk Life and Ladder. Botticus, I've seen you in the client a lot lately, buddy. How's it going?
Going pretty good. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird because it feels like I'm still playing a ton of WoW, which I definitely am, but in that time I also managed to hit Legend with some Shadow Priest.
Yeah,
which
get him.
I don't know how I could be more right and more wrong about this set. I don't think it's possible for me to be simultaneously more right and more wrong about this set at the same time. Because Shadow Priest is very good. Had a win on turn 4, lethal damage on turn 4, which was pretty sweet. And yeah, the deck was super fun. You just kill people.
Yeah.
People just like manage to die from double digit health totals pretty easily. And you have a decent amount of reach, at least with the list I was playing. I've seen a few different lists out there. It feels like the tradable card is pretty interchangeable. It feels like you want the tradable card in there.
You can trade it out for something.
Yeah, sure. But I was playing the snake, and I killed a few Doom Hammers, which felt pretty good.
Yeah. I'm back on Knife Fenders in that slot just because it does damage.
Oh, I was playing both. I played 2 Knife Fenders, 2
Traveling Merchants or Rustrod Vipers. Oh, well, Void Shard, yeah. You have to play Void Shard.
Yeah, 2 Void Shards and 2 Restaurant, or it might have only been 1 Restaurant. Maybe that was it. I don't even remember the list because I've moved on. Because I saw somebody say that at High Legend, Quest Shaman had the highest win rate, and that was probably a while ago. But I jumped on it anyway, and that deck is so sweet. Oh yeah. Man, you play Brucon. Actually, at least I found myself to play Brucon fairly infrequently, or you play him and then win the next turn. But the deck is just so much fun. It's so good. What was the card I was talking about? What you said right before the show? Guidance is just I love that card so much. And the 2 mana 2/3 really shines. Getting to buy back guidances is really powerful.
Well, you run out of hand space pretty quick if you're going like double guidance, note taker, or like note taker or double guidance and then double guidance again. Like that's a net 8 cards up. That's a lot. Yeah, it's too many. Well, not too many.
All of those, and I mean, the best thing is just when guidance double. Well, a lot of times, like note taker is just good early to get another guidance, so you're not like double guidancing twice, unless you're playing against a Death Rattle Priest, which you won't.
You're gonna have to explain that very specific comment a little bit more because I don't think that's a meta.
I'm just saying, like, basically, all of my games end the turn after I played Brucon, unless I'm playing against this one person that was playing Death Rattle Priest that was very unhappy because I transformed 6 or 7 of their minions Multiple of them were buffed by the Elec card, the Elec buff, and they were very unhappy and tried to add me multiple times over the next 15 minutes.
Yikes.
Who knows what they wanted to say, but I could tell they probably had a word or two for me.
Yeah.
It could have been an insistent friend of the show bot.
It could have. I'll never know.
Yeah.
But so
I have
I'm
my doubts about
actually,
that.
I am still washed up, but got back into triple digit legend, which hasn't happened in a while. So
Hey, welcome
I'm
back.
like this 800s. So not high legend, but still
It's,
feels like I'm doing well with the deck, even though I feel like it's not very good against combo, and that's most of the decks I face. So it has to be okay against combo because I'm playing so many of them and still winning. So it's kind of weird.
you don't have much reach from hand until the Brucon situation happens, and usually you don't have the time to get there. Like the mage, warlock, and DH matchups are all pretty rough. Your minion matchups are really good, except sometimes hand buff paladin, their stuff is just too big, but otherwise it's pretty close. But you're also
The only time hand buff gets rough, I feel like, is if they have Samuro Conviction, and then I beat every other, like basically every other hand buff draw.
we're good against minions, but sometimes there are minions that take like 3 removal spells chew through if they get Jewel Kit on 1 into Coin Bannerman or whatever. But yeah, Samuro Conviction is also still good. Still good combination. Especially when
and
Samuro
I
is hand buffed.
also feel like I beat a lot of mages, except that most of the mages have flow on turn 1 or 2, and I don't beat those.
No. I would be surprised if they're going coin flow over quest, but like I don't know. If they have
I
flow, it
ran
doesn't matter.
into a lot of mages going coin flow into quest.
Interesting.
A lot of them.
That feels wrong. But
Yeah.
More mages that were going more mages that were going second that had flow were coining it out than the other way around.
That surprised me, but I haven't been playing with or against a lot of mages lately, so maybe that's true. I don't know. It's not what I would do, but I don't know if that means it's right or
Like
not.
the deck has so many arcane spells that I understand the thought process. But I mean, it doesn't matter what turn they play flow, as if it's in the first 2 turns, I lose that matchup very, very frequently, and don't lose it too frequently if they don't play an early flow.
Yeah. Like, that line tells me that they believe that it is more important to coin the top card of their deck than save the coin. And I don't quite follow that, but if they have flow that early, it doesn't matter. Edelweiss, what have you been doing?
ooh, well, I'm gonna be washed up in Bauticus's place now. I have been helping my father-in-law with a painting job that it's like the biggest one he's ever gotten, so he needs the help. And also initially they said there's no deadlines, but now they're like, actually it would be really nice to have these rooms done by these times. So there's kind of a pressure to get certain parts of the house done first. So I've been helping paint from like 10 to 6. And I have mostly spent the pandemic at my desk. So it takes some getting used to being on my feet all day again.
Yeah, that can be quite tiring. I remember the first time they started to go back to work, and that first week I was like, oh man, I would be out of the house for like 9-10 hours, and then I'd come back and be like, I am beat, and just pass out on the couch instantly. So I can very much relate to that feeling. Have you had time to sneak in any games?
Here and there, and before I started, like obviously this was a just kind of weekdays thing. But over the weekend I played in Supergirl Gamer Pro, which was pretty great. Managed to qualify for the championship of that.
Oh, wait, hold on a sec. Hold on. So the only time you played, you won the tournament.
Well, I mean, it's not the only time. I also streamed on Tuesday and played some wacky stuff. Yeah.
Okay, well, congratulations. What was your lineup? What'd you play?
I played full control.
But I thought control
Because-
was dead.
Well, oh gosh, yeah, this is gonna be an interesting talk. So,
Hmm.
as people may have noticed, the meta is rapidly evolving, and I basically took a gamble of I saw a couple of open cup lineups that were full control that had won, and the idea being everyone was so hard targeting mage, and they were doing so with aggressive decks, that if you could ban mage yourself or whatever was their most sort of anti-control deck, potentially OTK Demon Hunter, that was brought a lot as well, then you could get by playing full control with just like double Rustrot Viper and everything, because you need to hit the Paladin weapon and you need to hit Doomhammers. And it worked out very, very well, because I played a quest version of Warlock that instead of trying to turbo the quest or combo it or anything, you just kill everything. So I had Cascading Disasters. You've got the discount weapon just because it smooths out everything. And you had so much removal. Twisting Nether is really good against buffed minions because you don't care. Divine Shields as well. So I was pretty much targeting Paladin and Face Hunter with my lineup, and it was pretty successful.
We have a term for lineups that include weapon destruction in every deck. Edelweiss, you are a flat oozer.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Monsano.
No, same thing. Basically the same idea. And you just have Vipers everywhere. Nobody could stick a weapon against you. But yeah, it makes sense. And this lineup, I see what you mean. Outside of this OTK Demon Hunter, these are not what we would recommend for ladder. And I assume there would be some evolutions if you were to rebuild them now. But also for that time in the meta in particular, which was even more in flux than what we're dealing with, it lines up really well. And people that are trying to kill mages with damage cannot kill these decks with damage. Like, what's going to win? A Face Hunter deck or a Heavy Plate? It's the Heavy Plate. Good old 3-mana gain 8. Yeah, this looks like a lot of fun. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a good read. But at the same time, now I'm qualified. I've got to do the championship, but I need to come up with something completely different because the same lineup's not going to work.
I like the bait. You say something completely different, and then you just hit them with the Rustrot Vipers again. Just get them again.
Yeah.
Run it back. I see your play.
We'll see how things develop. I have to submit soon, but
well,
I'm also going to a wedding this weekend, so
we'll have a lot of free time. Yeah, welcome to the club. So as far as what I've been playing, the answer is yes, all of it, everything. Been playing all of it. Let's see. Yeah, I think I've played in the past week something from every class, maybe not Warrior. I don't know if I've played a Warrior deck in the past week. What an interesting world we live in. But I hit Legend last week with Quest Rogue. I've been tremendously enjoying the Shadow Priest deck. Been really enjoying every Demon Hunter deck I can find that's not OTK Demon Hunter, because that deck can go die. But Death Rattle Demon Hunter, Isco Man posted a list with Death Rattle Demon Hunter with Fell spells, where you play Jace, and then you play that when you want to Pyroblast your opponent, and also gain a bunch of life, and I like doing those things, so I've been doing that, and Quest Overload Shaman, of course, and the new Handlock Quest Warlock, where it cuts the Rune Mithril Rod, but it plays Goldshire Knoll, the 5/4 that's a 10-drop but gets cheaper for every other card in your hand, and it plays Anetheron and Flesh Giant, and it's very silly. None of your minions cost any mana. It doesn't feel quite right or fair, but like I enjoy playing Baron Scavenger, Flesh Giant, whatever, and you can play out the Knolls over and over again and raise them back and then turbo through the quest, but also play Soul Ren is really good at clearing stuff. I've been enjoying the Secret Paladin, not hand buff. You play Bannerman because Bannerman is a stupid card. But then also, speaking of wanting to kill OTK DHs, if I want to get more personally involved in that, I play Secret Paladin because they cannot beat an Oh My Yogg opening into giant Divine Shield minions. I've played against so many OTK Demon Hunters, and so I fired up Secret Paladin. I played 2 games back to back a couple days ago. The first one I killed them on turn 5 because Cariel hit on turn 4, discounted my conviction. Wind Fury, Battlemaster. We all know that story. The second game, I fatigued them because I ran them out of kill spells, and their philosophies got Oh My Yogg, so they ran out of Moargs. So they used both I-Beams, they used both Fellscream Blast, they couldn't copy their Moargs because I Oh My Yogged them. And then they ran out of stuff and conceded. Tremendously enjoyable. What else? There's gotta be more that I've been playing too. Haven't really played much Druid.
Have you gotten Oh My Yogged after Bruconning?
No, how does that work?
You double whatever spell it turns into. That's pretty sweet.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think I tried to play I played a 1-mana spell that turned into the Warlock spell that deals 3 damage and deals 3 damage to your own minion. And it dealt 6 damage. It dealt 6 damage to their minion and 6 damage to my stuff.
Interesting.
But it was very good for me.
Yes.
Because I think it killed one of my totems or something.
And I played Skywalker SC2s. They have a new quest paladin list that is 28 1-mana cards and 2 traveling merchants. And that is also very enjoyable if you like playing 1-drops and then hero powering twice until your opponent dies. And I got Oh My Yogged. I was playing against a secret paladin as the quest paladin, and they Oh My Yogged one of my secrets into a secret passage. And let me tell you, secret passage in a deck with 28 1-drops, very powerful. Very good thing to get yogged into. So we both gave ourselves a little wowie mode there. I did. Yes, I did win that game. Shortly thereafter, I tour guide Cariel shortly after, and then my opponent died the following turn. It was very nice. So this format is super wide open, and I'm enjoying basically everything that I'm playing. And yeah, and there's some.
By the way, remember what I said about quests?
Remind
Quest
me.
Shaman, Quest Mage, Quest Warlock, Quest Demon Hunter, Quest Rogue.
Yep.
At least 5 quests would be in the meta, at least.
Yeah, and these are. This is the most powerful group of quests they've ever printed. Not even powerful, playable. And some of them had 1-meta wonders, like Shaman and Druid and Uldum were both good, but they didn't really persist. I feel like these are going to do better. Like, it's not based on anything other than playing with them, but the phases are so much more relevant to each game that it mitigates the cost of being down a card early. And sometimes in some decks, like in Demon Hunter especially, you don't need the reward, you just want the phase rewards. And it makes the downside so much less that I think these are going to see play for a while.
And they're so much more engaging too, because there were some quests that you just felt like you were waiting forever for it to be done, and there was nothing happening, and you just like, oh, I played this thing on turn 1, and it's like I had a dead card in my hand because I never got to play the final reward. But so many of these decks, it's like, okay, I play a couple pieces of the quest, I get a small little reward for doing that. I play a couple more pieces, I get a small reward, and then you build up. It really feels like the game, you're building up to it, and your opponent has a better idea, like, okay, how quick do I need to go here? And sometimes you just get the random game where it's like turn 4, they're completing the final part of the quest, and it's like, oh crap, my opponent had a very good draw this game. But other times it's like, okay, well, probably they're not going to be able to complete the quest next turn and also play the final reward, so that means I have an extra turn. I should figure out what my pattern needs to be so that I can take advantage before they get their final reward and the game gets out of hand.
Yeah, the quest reward 5-drop minions, this format is so fast that it's often really difficult to squeeze those into a turn and not die. So there's a real downside to playing them with the way the format is developed. It's really fascinating. The format's gotten way, 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 way faster. Anyone that's played that knows that, but it's not just because of the combo decks existing. It's also because of the aggressive tools and also because of how powerful the synergies are. And the defensive options are okay right now, but this does not feel like a format built on slowing things down so much as getting to do my thing before your thing.
Also, is it just me or are 7/7s really awkward to deal with? It might just be Quest Shaman that has trouble dealing with them, but I found like breaking up my spells into dealing 7 damage has turned out to be kind of rough. It feels like you do 6 damage pretty easily and 3 damage pretty easily in the format, but the 7/7 breakpoint just feels super awkward.
I mean, I would think Shaman would have one of the better ways, which is Torrent, but I guess you don't main deck that anymore.
No. It's all the Brucon doubling will deal 6. If you play Novice Zapper, sometimes you can do it. The current list of Quest Shaman that I'm playing has Tidal Surge, so if you're able to double that, that's 8 and gain 8. And Tidal Surge is pretty good right now. But yeah, like the 7/7, there's a lot of ways to deal 6 easily, but it is a little awkward. But if people are like Quest Shaman is one of the few decks where like you're actually slowing the game down and trying to play on your terms. It is what a control deck looks like in the Stormwind meta, and there are very few of those. And most of the time, what I found is that when people play their 5-mana 7/7, they either win the next turn or die that turn. Almost always. But the meta is nowhere near done evolving, which brings us to the news.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right, so we all kind of expected nerfs this week because that seems to have been the trend over the last couple expansions. But we have the announcement that there were going to be no nerfs this week. Alec Dawson tweeted saying no constructive balance changes, but they do plan to have some balance changes coming out early next week. And what those changes are, we are not quite sure yet, but we're going to get into a fairly lengthy discussion in the Decksplanations about what we are kind of expecting to see, what we think they should be looking at, and all of that. But so we know that there are going to be nerfs. We just they're a little more delayed than before. And personally, I think this is fine. I don't think that the current meta is in such an unstable state that I feel like I'm just playing against the same broken thing over and over again, even though there's a lot of different broken things. Maybe that's not ideal, but at least it feels like there's a bit of variance there instead of just one deck that people are playing because they know that it's going to get ranched pretty soon in the balance changes.
Yeah, it's so Abar, who runs the esports team, has actually basically came out and said the reason that Grandmasters this week was Wednesday for the first day instead of Thursday, which was previously announced, was to make room for the balance patch on Thursday, because there was always planned to be a balance patch on Thursday. This was break glass in case of Deck of Lunacy. There's no Deck of Lunacy this time, and we're going to talk about this in Decksplanations. There is no easy answer or clear answer or any idea as to what to do right now. So it's kind of crazy to me that they actually had a patch window and elected to defer, because usually what software development doesn't have is time. But they chose to take the time, and I think it's the right call, because I have no idea. How I felt about what they would have nerfed at the beginning of today is different than what I think they should nerf now. Just today. So I don't even know what it's going to be like after the weekend.
Were you expecting nerfs this week at Elias?
Yeah, I was totally expecting. I mean, we had heard that it was pretty much guaranteed. And I think there are probably a couple of cards that they could have said, well, things are shifting, but these are definitely going to need it. I think they would rather, take some time to be really thoughtful about it and not just do the couple standouts, because they're not going to do another one for a little while, at least. And things shifted pretty dramatically, I think, in a different way than people had anticipated. Previously, when Mage was an issue, it just was. Everyone was playing it. I mean, the percentage was truly dominant. And then nerfs got announced for it, and it got even worse. It was pretty much unbearable. This time, people adjusted, and you actually could adjust properly. Like, Mage could still win games. They tried to sort of readjust with Shattering Blast, etc. But it had distinct counters, and I think something that we'll get to later is just this meta, I think, is a bit more polarizing in terms of matchups. And so it's got a lot of rock, paper, scissors going on, and so there's going to be sort of seesawing back and forth in terms of what people are playing, because if certain things become popular, other things are going to be, pretty hard to keep playing on ladder because they might get pushed out for a time. So it may kind of do this constant cycling through of like, well, this strategy is popular, so then people are going to adjust and do this thing that counters that. Then we'll adjust again. We'll kind of do the rotation week to week.
And we're even still seeing new strategies, like not just a rotation of what beats what and what's being played, but like new decks. The Goldshire Knoll Handlock Quest Warlock was new as of middle of the night last night when Zirio started playing it, and it's already really powerful. And there's just something new and interesting crossing my timeline every day.
Also, it feels like there's a lot more options for tech cards that can really beat up on some of these decks. So if you're really tired of just like losing to Quest Mage, you can just fill your deck with like 2-post and 4-post and Ogremancers, and then just figure out the cards you want around that, and that Mage is going to have a really hard time beating you with those cards in it. It's not impossible to beat them, but it's going to be pretty difficult to beat that set of cards. Or just a bunch of variety. There's also a bunch of Neophytes, right? I think that's the card.
Yeah.
Cult Neophyte.
Yep.
Yeah, that also does a lot of work against a lot of decks. So it feels like the tech cards are good enough that they're worth playing sometimes, and you can really try to improve your percentages against strategies you really don't want to lose to.
And like Jakerek is saying in the chat, Robes of Protection. Boy, what a card that is against Mage and Demon Hunter. Neither of those decks can do a thing. You can kind of do it with Death Rattle Demon Hunter with, like, if you boost an Immolation Aura, but if there's no Immolation Aura, the game is over. And Mage loses their ability to progress their quest and kill your stuff, both of which are somewhat important to the Mage. And also, Mage
still has a
Fire Sale.
4-drop.
They have to boost Fire Sale, though.
That's about it.
And it has to get spell damage boosted because it does 3 base. So it's not easy for them to engineer that situation. And beyond that, also, Mage, in particular, loses to refined decks. It's dropped to, if you look on HS Replay in the last 3 days, it is the last Tier 2 deck, barely above 50% win rate, still quite popular. And your experience may vary based on variance that day, but the field is too wide open for any one deck to be oppressive, and also for any one deck to be the only thing you see unless you get unlucky. It's possible. I mean, 15% of a meta. Like, you can see that a bunch of times.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Mage is getting a little extra dampered in terms of win rate because it was sort of the thing out the gate and people found it so frustrating that they teched incredibly hard, and those techs are kind of sticking around. So if we hit a point where people start taking out things like robes, then, Mage gets a lot better in those circumstances.
Yeah,
I think having an ebb and flow is probably just really good for the meta, having the meta constantly change and, wanting to be on top of it, and maybe you move some tech cards in, move some tech cards out, and even though you're playing the same deck with the same type of strategy, the cards in your deck might completely change and give it kind of a different feel depending on what things are looking like. I think rewarding people who are engaged in the game is probably a positive thing overall.
This is also something that I've talked about this on every show I've been on lately, but I'm going to say it again. 4-set, 5-set, and 6-set have all very clear defined feels right now. In 4-set metas, you usually have a power outlier because there aren't the tools to deal with it. In 6-set metas, you usually have a different kind of power outlier because it has too much redundancy and depth. And both of those are a little bit clear about what you can play or what you can play to beat. 5-set metas usually have the balance where it is defined by its instability and constant shifting experimentation, where there's a new deck every day, and there's a lot of deck lists to consume, and there's so many strategies, and it's unclear what's good and what's not, and people argue about specific card inclusions. That is how it goes in 5-set metas, and it's been that way with Saviors, and it's been that way with Skolo, and it's been that way now with Stormwind, which means Alec Dawson middle sets that start with the letter S are all going to be like this. That's the correlation that I figured out. And I think all of us really dig the 5-set metas. It's really an S tier expansion, which really, it works on a bunch of different levels. But also, if you are a player that wants to pick one deck and stick with it, you're going to have a rough time right now. If you are someone that likes to know what you're going to see frequently so you know what to beat, it's going to be a rough time right now. If you have trouble keeping up with new developments, it's going to be a little rough right now. And also, if you like slower games, this ain't it. This is really not it. So, there's been... people have a ton of feelings right now, and there's been a lot of discussion over the course of this expansion cycle so far. Is this a good meta? Is this a bad meta? I don't think that there is an objective qualifier. We are all having a great time, and if you're not, it doesn't mean that you're broken or wrong. Just that the way things are right now, games are forward-moving. There's not a lot of attrition battles. If there are, it's still, you're talking about being overturned 9 or 10, usually at the latest, very rarely later than that. There is a significant visible presence of combo in the format, and sometimes you're going to lose, and it's not going to be on the board, and that's just going to be how it goes. And also, the deck list that you had on Tuesday is probably not good enough on Thursday. And if you like that sort of thing like we do, then all about it. But if you don't, totally understand.
And if you're one of the people that plays one deck because you don't have a lot of different options to play, well, you could check out potentially one of the new bundles that's in the shop. Some of them maybe not so much for the adding to your collection, unless adding to your collection means adding golden cards to your collection. But there's been a couple different options for bundles added to the shop. We have the United in Stormwind bundle for $20 US. That gets you 20 packs, 10 United in Stormwind packs, 10 standard, and then 2 random United in Stormwind legendaries. And then also there's a golden Stormwind bundle where you could get a golden United in Stormwind legendary and 10 golden packs of United in Stormwind for $40 US. I feel like I also saw on Reddit somebody posting they got like double that. There was like a $80 bundle that was 2 golden legendaries and 20 packs. So
yeah, they've been changing the bundles every day. So there's someone in our Discord that they bought the $40 golden bundle, and then the next day they saw the $80 golden bundle and remained strong. And the question is asked: if you buy that one, is tomorrow the 160? Is the day after the 320? When does it end? When does it stop? But so we don't know, but so far it seems like people are receiving different bundle sizes, and then what they're seeing in the store the very next day could be different person to person as well. It's really interesting what they're doing here, but there's also no clarity at all. It's just fan-sourced, crowd-sourced, whatever, as to what's happening. Really strange.
Yeah, I was offered pretty modest bundles. They were on sort of the more budget end, which honestly would be correct targeting if I didn't have, all of standard already. But I like the idea of these as either catch-up bundles or just I forgot to pre-order and so I can get this other thing instead, or couldn't, maybe haven't been playing for a while, but then people said this expansion is really hype well, you missed out on the pre-order, but you get to do this thing. So it seems like a pretty good strategy.
It's also the catch-up bundle thing is what they've done every expansion, every mini set now, and it is a good idea to give people an opportunity to spend $20 after a thing has come out to determine if they'll like it, as opposed to requiring $50 ahead of time. And the timing is really consistent. It's the week after the expansion. Every time, $20 will get you a good order. Yeah, like it's Reksham in the chat is saying, just get the Tavern Pass and the $20 bundle, and that's pretty cost effective, all things considered. And it's nice that that option is available to players. That it can be a more modest way to buy in, especially after the day one bait crafts are out of the way. If your willpower is weak, but you wait a week in to buy the new stuff, then all the bad decks, or at least some of the bad decks, have filtered out. Some people still think Geralt Rogue is a good thing to do. Don't do it. It's not a good thing to do.
It also feels a lot better because the rewards track is more rewarding, right? So you might be more willing to, be on a budget and wait because you were still able to buy, 60 to 100 packs with gold on day one.
Yep. And you can see what your level 20 legendary is, which you usually get in the first day or two when you hit level 20 in the pass if you save your weeklies. And you can just build around that.
Yeah, and I also like, so we have a link in the show notes to an Out of Cards article. I like that they broke down the golden bundle just to see for if you are not a person that wants golden cards but are looking for specifically dust value, this is barely worth it. But it is slightly better than purchasing cards without a bundle. And that's if you get really bad luck on your golden cards. But if you're into golden cards, I don't know if it gets much better than this. This is pretty good value if your goal is to get golden cards. Except that there is a note that golden card packs do not have a pity timer. Opening a golden card pack will have the exact same odds for each of the card rarities.
Yeah. Someone
Just as
forgot
a
to
note
tell you
for
that when
people.
you opened your golden packs. Because you opened 3 golden legendaries.
Yeah. True. So yeah, that's the new bundles that are out. There's also a kind of a weird bug. I guess some people got classic packs for doing the Tavern Brawl instead of a Phoenix pack. And if this happened to you, then you should have been sent 100 gold so that you could buy the correct pack. But kind of an interesting little bug, but got fixed. The new Book of Heroes just came out. If you have beaten all of the Book of Heroes, you get a golden pack, but the pop-up at the end is blank. They're going to fix it.
It is amusing. I understand the confusion if you're in the game and saw this. I first saw this on Twitter. It's a pop-up that's just, congratulations, and it's just empty. And it's funny. So, yeah, if you beat all the Book of Heroes, all 10, free golden pack. So, time to catch up if you're behind. Like me.
And me. There's just too much other Hearthstone to play.
Yes.
And then looks like we have a note here about Hearthstone Access. Why don't you give us a little idea about what this is?
So this is a really cool thing. There's a guide dev, which I believe, is this a company or... Yeah, it's a person. Guide dev. He made an accessibility mod that allows Hearthstone to be played if you are blind or visually impaired. It reads what's going on in the screen, and it reads the log, and it reads it out loud to you. There's an Out of Cards article that I linked in the show notes that has some videos of players playing Hearthstone for the first time. Super Blind Man and Sturlock are 2 players that have talked about wanting to play Hearthstone but couldn't because of the accessibility reasons, and you get to watch them experience Hearthstone for the first time, and it's really, really magical. So I definitely recommend going to check it out. It's like a feel-good moment, and it's just nice that that Hearthstone can be opened up to more players. You know, it's not gonna be perfect if you're trying to play Stealer of Souls Warlock. The text to speech probably not going to keep up with the animations or the turn timers. But just seeing people experience Hearthstone for the first time is really great.
Yeah. And then, obviously, every week, now that Iksar is back, we have the Iksar AMA, and we had a bunch of interesting responses this week. Congratulations, Dean, on 10 years. Big congratulations there. Also, apparently, something he is really, I don't know if pushing for is the right terminology, but really wants to be in the game is an emote wheel, where you can customize the different emotes that you take into a match of Hearthstone, which is why there's a bunch of alternate voice lines that are in the game but not necessarily accessible, because basically they record a bunch of extra stuff so that eventually this emote wheel can happen. What were some of the other big points you wanted to talk about from the AMA, Mr. Hat?
So Dean views Hearthstone as something that will be around for a while. Talked about how there's not current plans for additional formats, but something between Wild and Standard might be nice. A direct quote. I agree with him. Talked about some options for the next new class. People bring up Monk a lot, but the options that Dean said are Monk, Death Knight, or a new Hearthstone-specific class that is not from WoW, and that Monk is second or third on that list. Interesting. I wonder what they would do. Maybe it would be something that was based on the League of Evil or League of Explorers. Could do something there. I'm not sure. They're trying to get better at coordinating card design and visual effects, because it's important for them to share card design knowledge about potential problems when players are playing cards that might trigger a lot of effects in a small window. The example that was used was Soul Fragment and Stealer. We learned in that reply from Linus Link, who's a producer on the visual effects for Hearthstone, that they have a fix in the pipeline for 21.2 for Stealer and Soul Fragment specifically. So, those are coming. Couple direct quotes here. Any deck that is broken is a surprise. We don't intentionally ship broken decks. Broken is just a word players tend to use for decks that seem good. Broken to us in development is something in the 25% plus population and 54 to 55% plus win rate range, such as Launch Demon Hunter or Galakron Shaman, not too much else. Yeah, we don't have anything remotely close to that right now.
Or Corridor Creeper decks.
Sure. That's the card, not the decks.
And it's good to have a metric for that, right? So that you can always compare things and be like, okay, we're not at that, but these are getting there, or these are outliers.
Yeah, I would imagine that some variant of Baron's Paladin on launch was probably not too far from this, but there were so many different Paladin decks that you could play that maybe not. And then there's one really interesting tweet chain that he had. It was asked about the possibility of a mass nerf and about power creep, which is a complicated, loaded phrase, but I'm just going to read the tweet word for word for you. Power creep is a decision. We can do anything we want in terms of balance. We could release an expansion that has cards no one plays because they aren't powerful enough. Remember Rosticons. Power creep isn't intentional, but if our goal is to match current power level, then in some ways, yes, it's inevitable. If your goal is to match, then there will be some cards and strategies that miss low and some that miss high. For the ones that miss high, that becomes the new power point to match. This goes on and on. We've discussed a mass nerf, and I don't think it's unreasonable. We could do it at a standard rotation set, lower the power of the core set, release a lower power set, and do a bunch of nerfs to the 3 sets from the previous year. Not a crazy idea. As next year approaches, I think we'll consider it very closely. I'm glad this was said, because I was really wondering, where does even the 6 set go from here?
Yeah, I think this is just like an excellent, tweet or point to be able to point to and say, hey, look, they always have tools in their back pocket. And I think it can be frustrating when you have to sit through an experience. I know people didn't love Witchwood, Boomsday, Rastakon's Rumble, but I think even at that time, I was saying, hey, if we want to bring down power level from Ungoro, Knights, Kobolds, you have to do this. And, there were a few cards in those sets, outliers, obviously Baku and Gen. But even though Rastakon's gets the big, it didn't change anything, Boomsday was also not hugely impactful, I think.
Outside of Warrior. Very good for Warrior.
Right. Yeah, very good for Warrior. But in general, that year, when you compare it to the previous year, was a downscale. But because they didn't have something like the core set where they could make adjustments at the same time, it just meant that you had to downshift power level and then wait for everything else to rotate out to really be able to use those cards.
And when we're talking about mass nerfs to make the year more viable, if you look at, what is this? May 22nd of the year the Witchwood came out, they nerfed Call to Arms, the Rogue Quest, Dark Pact, Nagasi, which were wild, Possessed Lackey, and Spiteful Summoner. They did a mass nerf. We just had to play with it for 6 weeks. So why not just do it before instead of after? And 6 cards doesn't necessarily seem like a mass nerf, but they kind of did this as well. Remember, they did a whole bunch of nerfs for they nerfed 7 cards in DoD. That was in January, but Fiendish Rites, Scion of Ruin, Ankar, Dragon's Pack, Invocation of Frost, Necrom Apothecary, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. Some of these were gross, and they had to be nudged. But also, some of these were set up for next year. I don't think that anyone was really saying, oh, Fiendish Rites is too crazy. Even though it was seeing play in Galakron Zoo and Galakron Warlock, there were they just did a bunch of changes to make room for the new stuff, and it's also what they did at the end of Ashes. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, Corsair Cache, Metamorphosis, Kane, Warglaves, Dragoncaster, Fungal Fortunes, Galakron the Nightmare for Rogue. They have started to get used to the idea of setting up the next expansion for success with that last round of nerfs in the 0.6 patch. So this is just an extension of that policy that they kind of already have. And I think it makes sense to discuss that this is something that could happen, because you look at the meta right now, this is not necessarily the most powerful meta we have, but it sure feels like it's in the range, in the ballpark, and something that would be very difficult for them to do right now. Even if we went back to a 4-set Baron's-S meta, the quest wouldn't go away. It'd be really hard to print attrition control strategies right now. So if they wanted to do that, they would have to nudge some of the quests and some of the other cards they've printed. And I'm glad that that's an option that's available to them.
Although, in some ways, depending on the quest, they will get self-nudged from having a more limited pool of cards.
Yeah.
Like right now, there's a bunch of pirates in core. This is just an example. I don't know that this would actually happen. But say you were thinking, oh, hey, in our testing, Pirate Warrior or Pirate Quest Warrior is pretty nuts. Well, what if we remove 1 or 2 pirates from core for 2022 so that it's just, a little harder to take care of? And we plan on making some other pirates this year, so those will kind of shift things around. But there's just so many levers to pull at this point that there are times when I just think about the future of Hearthstone and I just get really excited, because we have just seen kind of the introduction, the tip of the iceberg, in terms of what they can do with the core set at their disposal and with these mini sets.
Yeah. There is no immutable, unchangeable thing. Everything is on the table. And Dean discussed so much other stuff in his AMA. There's a lot to this week. I strongly recommend going to check it out. But for now, I think it's time that we cover some tournament stuff. Let's go.
It's the Grand Tournament!
All right, so Grandmasters actually already started. Like we said, this was going to start today, Thursday, but instead started yesterday, Wednesday, because they were making room for a patch that was supposed to hit today and nudge some cards. They decided not to do that patch. ABAR came out and said it's going to be Tuesday, and it was originally going to be today, going to be Thursday. So much clearer than we're used to getting. ABAR's in esports. I'm not sure if he was supposed to say that, but he said it, so whatever. If you're looking for more information on what's going on in Grandmasters, Rain wrote a really great article for esports.gg. It covers the format, how this week is Conquest, next week is Last Hero Standing, and goes over the prize pools and the path to World Championship and who's already qualified. Really good summary. I strongly recommend checking it out over at esports.gg. Lorinda also covered the stats from the first day of Grandmasters. The best class. Well,
Warlock?
it's actually the best class and the worst class are kind of the same. Warrior was brought 4 times and banned 4 times. 0 wins, 0 losses, exclusively banned. Is that the best class? Is that the worst class? I have no idea. But the best deck overall by win rate by far was Hunter at 63.6% win rate, 21-12, 23 bans, 3 mirror matches. Warlock was actually near the bottom. It was very popular, and it seemed like it was very well targeted. Hunter and Mage were at the top, with Demon Hunter in third as the only other class above 50%. The worst class overall was Druid. It was only brought 9 times. It went 3-6. There are a lot of really sketchy Druid decks. But Warlock was the worst class with a high sample size, but it was also being targeted pretty hard. If you look at the best win rate decks are Hunter, Mage, and Demon Hunter, no, I am not super surprised. And Rogue as well, 16-16. But I imagine the ones that did well were the ones that went face with either Poison or, if you must, with Sharks and Garrotes and whatever. So, still interesting. The Grandmasters also had the chance to resubmit their decks because there were planned balance changes. So the first deadline, the list started popping up on Twitter on Tuesday, which is way early. But they have a chance to resubmit their decks today and redo lineups. And that didn't go away just because the patch moved. So that opportunity is still available to them. I imagine that we will see much better decks for the second half of GM here. We'll see that on broadcast. And I'm curious to see what works. I'm excited to watch Grandmasters this weekend. Speaking of things I'm excited to watch, in 2 weekends, Masters Tour Silvermoon is coming, so get ready. 2 weekends. On the 27th, it's close. And qualifiers are going right now. The first weekend of qualifiers is also in. The best deck in qualifiers from week 1 by a large margin is Questline Shaman. Now, this is in your ban mage lineups, really focused on beating minion decks, and I think, Edelweiss, they're trying to do what you did, which is if you expect people to go in on hard targeting Mage and Demon Hunter, then you target them with Questline Shaman, and it really worked. The second best deck in qualifiers is Control Priest? Huh? What? Control Priest. Yeah, same thing. If a bunch of people are trying to beat Mage with minions and damage, you know what's good against minions and damage? Control Priest. Won a lot of qualifiers, did quite well. Elemental Shaman is good, Quest Demon Hunter is good, Quest Zoo is good, Quest Rogue is good, Face Hunter is good. Token Druid and Quest Druid were not very good, they did not perform well, and Garrote Rogue sucks, don't play it. Winners are all over the place. The most common deck is Quest OTK Demon Hunter. For those that are not keeping up with developments in this deck, you no longer play Skull of Gul'dan, because Skull of Gul'dan, when you outcast it for 6 mana, reduces 9 mana total. When you play Final Showdown on turn 1 and then trigger the first 2 phases, that reduces 9 mana total. So, if you have to pay for that effect, 1 mana is cheaper than 6 mana. I've done the math. I have confirmed. And so the deck is even lower curve than before and can kill frighteningly quickly. By far the most common winner. But my favorite stat. Every single class has been in a qualifier winning lineup this week more than once. There is no class that has not won a qualifier this week. Druid is the least frequent at 2. Warlock is right behind it at 3, though there will be more Warlocks next week for sure, because the new Soul Rend build, popularized by No Hands Gamer and then advanced by Xerios, is really strong. But every class has won a qualifier this week, and the second most popular winning deck this week is Control Priest. Quest Rogue's doing well, Control Warrior's doing surprisingly well, decent number of Shamans, decent number of Mages, couple Face Hunters, few hand buff Paladins. there's options out there, at least for week 1. So, fascinating to watch. Go check out Off Curve. I just did a podcast with Steve this past week with Wicked Good over there on the Off Curve feed, going over every deck that we can find in the Stormwind meta. It was over 2 hours. There is so much to talk about in this meta. And since we're going to talk about ladder, let's just go to Decksplanations and do it right now.
So usually I get to be more tuned into what's going on, but since I have, actually been working during the day and not just playing crap tons of Hearthstone, I'm a little behind. So I hopped on Ahirun Twitter and saw that there's a new kind of paladin in addition to this new warlock. It's not really a hand buff paladin. It's just like it's got secrets again and Hammer of the Naru and Variant. What's happening?
Well, Paladin's good. Secret's good. Play both. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? And we talk about the developments in the meta since last week. My favorite development? You want to know what's good? Blizzard told us. This is a very new thing. Like, Iksar has done meta reports before. But Tian Ding, who's a data scientist for Hearthstone, he actually just tweeted out their report of the decks with the highest win rate, and then their win rate going first and going second. Face Hunter's the best deck in the format in the first week. Now, of course, keep in mind this is the first 7 days. There is a jank tax being paid by a lot of decks here that Hunter is collecting, but it's the same deck list that's been tier 1 since last meta, and it got 2 really good cards this meta, and the format is weak to burn damage from hand, so I'm not surprised that it's really, really good. Elemental Shaman is number 2, Hand Buff Paladin 3, Aggro Elemental Shaman, which I assume is the Doomhammer build, is number 4, Rush Warrior, Questline Zoo Warlock, Spell Token Druid, which I assume is Anacondra, Aggro Shadow Priest, Poison Rogue, and Questline Shaman is the top 10 officially from Blizzard. Love they're putting this out there. However, we also had the Data Reaper report. That came out this morning. Here are the numbers on screen that you'll see from Legend rank only. I am not going to read all the decks here because there's so many. There's so many. Tier 1 through Tier 2 is 11 decks. 11 through Tier 1 through Tier 2. Including things like Rush Warrior and Death Rattle Demon Hunter that aren't as popular right now because they're not seeing as much play, because they're less interesting. And there's still strong decks in Tier 3 that we've seen. Druid decks, Lifesteal Demon Hunter, and Lifesteal Demon Hunter gets better, by the way, as well as Anaconda Druid at top 1000. There are many, many, many choices out there. And, well, I mean, we talked about a bit about what we've been playing, but what have we seen on ladder? What have the trends of our opponents been? Bodicus, what have you been running into more or less over the past week that you can remember?
So it's been a lot of mages. I've played against a lot of mages. Played against a lot of Quest Warlock. Both Quest Mage and Quest Warlock. Decent number of Quest Demon Hunter, not nearly in the same numbers as the other two. And then a smattering of like a little bit of Death Rattle Demon Hunter. I actually the next one that I saw a good amount of was Hand Buff Paladin, and just recently like one Secret Paladin yesterday. And then I think the more recent developments I've seen more shamans kind of recently, kind of a mix between elemental and quest shaman.
Yeah, for me, I've definitely seen a shift from the more aggressive shamans to the quest shaman. I think, one, because it's been, better to be controlling against some of these things like Face Hunter and the Paladins, etc. So Quest Shaman gets better in that respect, but also because I think when people realize that Quest Shaman was pretty viable, it's just more fun than jamming old Elemental Shaman or Doomhammer. So I think it's really drawing people in, being able to play this new thing that is Quest Shaman. And oh boy, Charged Call. That, I think that's what it's called, right?
Oh boy, that card is good.
That's the 3-mana spell
Holy
that
cow.
it starts at discover a 1-mana minion and summon it, but it scales with every overload card you've played that game. So you can get it up to 10, and when you have Brukan, you double it. I was doing a coaching yesterday where we were way behind on board. We were against a paladin that stuck a Battlegrounds Battlemaster, which is a crazy card. And so we're just like, okay, Brukan Charge Call, Scrapyard Colossus, your turn. We won that game. Because somehow, 2 7/7 taunts that both Death Rattle summon another 7/7 taunt was good enough against the board of Paladin minions.
And something to keep in mind as well with Charged Call is you don't have to wait until the reward is complete to play it. In fact, 9 drops, which is where you'll generally be once you've completed the quest, like if you've just completed it, that's where you're at. 9 drops are like okay, but you've got N'Zoth in there, you've got all the dragon flights, which many of them are battle cry dependent, so they're a lot of stats, but I think the best ones are like Sleepy Dragon, maybe Onyxia depending, and Runaway Blackwing.
Yeah.
And 6 drops are okay too. I've gotten a decent amount of if you're because I found I start to on my less good draws, my like not broken draws where I get where my 1-mana spell doesn't give me extra overload cards, I find I run out around or I start needing more pressure against the combo decks when it's at about 6, and you can get either some beefy minions, but I've gotten quite a few of the 4/9 that when you play a spell, you get 2 more spells.
Oh, the
And that's a pretty
I know
good
what
6
you're
drop,
talking
and
Onyx
it's good
Mage
pressure.
Scribe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then obviously 5 drops are okay too. Yeah, I can get 6 drops usually on turn, like on either 4 or 5 mana crystals a lot because you get the refresh. And so I found that to be pretty solid if you're up against a mage that's going off pretty quickly and you just need some pressure on the board that's going to be hard for them to deal with. 6s are okay. 6s, 8s, 9s, and 10s are usually where I go. Even some 7s are good, like Kael'thas. Kael'thas is pretty powerful at 7.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Kael'thas. Oh man, that card's still in Standard? I forgot about him.
Yeah, Kael'thas still in
Yeah, but
Standard.
it makes it'd be way better if it was old Kael'thas, because 1 mana is a lot more than 0 mana, and also the charge call cost counts as 1 spell. But usually the turn I'm doing the charge call, if it's under 9 or 10 drops, it's usually because I'm overloaded a ton and I just need to do something that turn, and so don't have a lot of mana left over usually to have a broken Kael'thas turn.
I definitely had a nice 6 where I got Daddy Roam, so just huge tempo swing in terms of getting an early 6 drop and then draw a couple cards at the end of turn. It was nice. Appreciated that one.
I've gotten Cornelius a couple times, and the card is not good enough to go in any decks right now, but it's a powerful effect if the game state allows for it. I could see Quest Shaman eventually maybe playing it, but just paying 6 mana for him seems unfair. He's a much better 3-drop than he is a 6-drop, which I recognize after saying it is a dumb thing to say, but it's true. Yeah. And I think that card, Cornelius Rome, is the best example of how wrong a lot of people were, including many of us, about what this meta was going to be. And it's hard to really tell ahead of time. The format of meta is going to... the shape of the meta without playing it and experiencing it. And it's even hard now to figure out where is this going to go. So Blizzard has had trouble nailing it down. We've had trouble figuring out, like, what is the thing that's really an outlier right now. And when we look at the past, not every nerf in the past has been a good one. I think the early Scholomance nerfs that we look at were actually quite good, but Scholomance was a great launch week that had some troubled play patterns. where each nerf removed to class. When they nerfed Dark Lair, which they probably had to do, Warlock kind of died for that entire expansion. And they nerfed Mage pretty hard towards the end there, with Evocation and Solarian Prime. And I guess they had to do that. But at the end of the meta is really like Soul Demon Hunter and Libroom, and there wasn't a lot else going on. And it was a lot less interesting than the beginning of the expansion. And you look at the nerfs they did in Darkmoon Faire, where they didn't see the Rise of Evolve Shaman coming, and they made Standard a lot less enjoyable for about 3 weeks. So they have to be careful here, and there's a delicate balance right now. Because the format feels like it has the tools to self-correct, but there are also some games that happen that feel like they probably shouldn't happen. I don't know. So
yeah, I was so certain last week in terms of, oh, these are the things that need to get hit. And then the adjustments took place, and now I'm not sure, because you hate to nerf several cards and then it completely throws things out of whack in another way. So I think there are some cards that still feel not great in terms of their power level, but it's a lot more even than I had felt, I think, at the end of last week.
Yeah, though some of the play patterns, I think, feel like outliers, even if they're not good decks. So I think they have a few plans in front of them, right? They could do nothing. And I don't think that'd be the worst decision in the world. They could nerf only a couple cards, or they could nerf a lot. Because there are a few things that I think stand out to me. They've talked, Dean has talked in the AMA, and he said that on-hand damage is too high right now. I think that's a fair statement. I think that's true. And just because the combo decks maybe aren't the best decks in the format doesn't mean they need to appear this much. And maybe we can all get it out of a system and then they can nerf a couple of them. The one that, like, the combo decks that stand out to me, it's not even Warlock, it's not even in Canner's Flow. I don't want to play against Il'gynoth anymore. I don't want to do that. We've done that enough. We've all done that enough. I think we can be done with that.
I would be fine playing against Il'gynoth. I just don't want to play against Moarg Il'gynoth. Like, I'm kind of okay with it as a tool with Eldrachi Warblades.
Something you play on turn 4 and then you attack and you deal 4 damage instead of 2 damage. Sure.
Right. If you are saying, hey, I don't need this lifesteal, but I'm happy to hurt you more, and we've got Eldrachi Warblades equipped, which can get destroyed. If you're equipping it in the same turn, that's a lot more mana. But just doing the multiple Moarg blast thing, I'm pretty over. I guess my only reason to maybe hit Il'gynoth would be if you tried hitting Fellscream Blast and it wasn't enough. Because one option I've seen proposed is you make Fellscream Blast only able to target enemy minions, which then removes the possibility of doing the, okay, you've got Ilgi, double Moargs, and your Talented Arcanist, and then you Fellscream Blast your 3 own minions. Suddenly, you have to use I-Beam for that, and usually I-Beam doesn't scale as well in terms of like the big numbers. So it's a bit more challenging to set up, especially if you're getting pressured and now you have to go, okay, I need to use my Fellscream Blast for removal because they can't combo anymore unless my opponent has minions.
What you describe is a fair and reasonable nerf to allow the deck to remain playable, and I would like to not do that. Make Il'gynoth damage the other hero. Any lifesteal damage you deal is dealt to yourself. Like, it's the nerf that I've seen going around lately is Moarg, which I think makes sense because you only have 1 Il'gynoth and you have 4 Moarg. So if you move Moarg to a 4-mana 4/6 or something, it used to be this card that we were using in Warlock, like with Netherbreast, and it was cool for a second. And now it is only used when you're about to die. and also used to facilitate ridiculous life gain. If you nerf Moarg to 3 mana or move it to 4 mana and make it bigger, then you can no longer survive the early game with Lifesteal DH either, which is kind of the problem that Face Hunter doesn't beat it, because at some point in the game they go Moarg, Arcanist, Fellscream Blast, and gain 1 billion, and then all the damage from the early game is done. So there are a lot of complicated things that can be done, but Lifesteal DH, the purpose that it served in the format was to be a combo deck with damage from hand to prevent attrition control decks from surviving. I think we're past that point where we need it to help us. I think there's enough damage from hand that maybe that deck can go away.
And also, there's enough inevitability in terms of certain quest lines that you don't need it, right? It's going to be challenging to overcome the Juggernaut or the Paladin quest if we're not doing OTK Demon Hunter things instead, and maybe those get a chance. Go ahead, Vaughn.
I think before this expansion, I might have considered them making OTK Demon Hunter not a thing, but by putting this quest in the game, I don't see the point of the quest without OTK Demon Hunter being a thing.
You glide him! You hit him with the momentum, Demon Hunter. You glide him. Oh man, that deck is so much fun. Oh boy. Yeah. I want to play Final Showdown.
The weapon? That you just,
Lion's Frenzy and Ironbound
card
Brute.
draw weapon.
Yeah. It's fun.
No, it's not a thing. That's not real.
That's the point. I want it to be a thing, so nerf the other stuff.
Yeah, I think there can be a tendency when there's something like OTK Demon Hunter around that you're sort of like, oh, well, why would I use the quest in any other way? And I think it's kind of a mind trick sometimes because, as Hat's saying, like that stuff actually feels pretty decent. It feels pretty good. You can hit people for a lot of damage with Lion's Frenzy, and even if you're not fully in that direction, we had a Concede community member, I'm blanking on the name at present, but
Bit by Bit they posted that replay.
Yes.
They posted a replay today where they played 5, 8, 9 Ironbound Brutes in the same turn. Whew! Whew! Just, so juicy. Yeah. I want people to experiment with it, and the play pattern of playing against OTKDH sucks. And if they're removing on-hand damage, you can't make a statement like that and allow this deck to still exist. And it's been around for 6 months, and that story has remained the same. So, it's not a win rate outlier, I just want it to stop happening. And it is absolutely a win rate outlier in tournaments, where it's something that is happening so frequently that it is just a part of the metagame in a major way, in a visible way that I think maybe has lost its value. But you can't nerf all the damage from hand either, right? Like, there's so many different ways to kill people from almost nothing. Quest Mage does a bunch of it. Quest Warlock does a lot of it. And a lot of these are fun ways to play, but a lot of them are overtuned as well. At least in terms of polarity, if you look at the Mulligan win rate of Incanter Slow, it's a 67% win rate card in a 50% win rate deck, which tells you how insane that is. And Quest Warlock is a lot harder because that's like 3 different decks right now, and they're all pretty good. And well, the full combo build sucks, but the Zoo build and the Soul Rend build are both very strong, and those decks are both harder to nerf, and I think we're less interested in removing those strategies, just slowing them down a little bit.
And the wild version is bonkers, apparently.
Well, okay. Wild
Absolutely bonkers.
Wild is a whole different situation that I do not feel qualified to discuss, but it's a lot.
Yeah. I think one of the big things in Wild is you have a 1-mana 1/3 that contributes 5 damage towards the quest without actually costing 5 life. Those who remember, it's like Crystalline something.
Oh, Crystallizer. Yeah.
Yeah. Deals 5 to you, and then you gain 5 armor. So it's kind of the perfect card for Quest Warlock in a pretty absurd way.
They also have Molten Giants. Also, there are some people that have gone full combo with Unlicensed Apothecary, a 3-mana 5/5 that whenever you play a minion, it deals 5 to yourself. The quest gets cleared extremely quickly, and then your opponent suddenly dies. So, I don't think the full combo build is the best way to go, but Wild right now is, I'm not going to say beyond repair, but it's close. they're at a major decision point in that format as to what we do going forward. But besides these combo-y cards, it's not like the minion decks are slow either, and we have to talk about our 5-mana 5/5 friend, Battleground Battlemaster, where the Conviction interaction is obviously ridiculous, but it's also in Quest Rogue with Stealth, and it's also in Flesh Giant Warlock decks with Flesh Giant, and it's also just a card that's in a lot of decks. It's in a lot of things.
Yeah, it feels like this card is not sacrificing enough for the effect it has, because it's so much better than just give 2 minions Wind Fury. Like the fact that that's often all it is. So stat nerfs are not really solving that in terms of 5 mana, give 2 minions Wind Fury. But it's also just not a battle cry or anything. It's just adjacent. So if your positioning is wonky, you'll sometimes do things where you will try and get rid of a minion in between so you can get your 2 biggest ones next to each other to hit them for a bunch. And sometimes you can intentionally, place it in a way so that you can use maybe your high health minion to kill and break through this taunt, and then your high attack minions to actually finish them off. Like, the fact that it slides is kind of insane. But the major thing is just it's 5 mana, give 2 things Wind Fury, and that's probably too early for that effect, because suddenly the game is, if you stick 2 minions with 3 attack or more, or honestly just at all when it comes to Conviction, you are risking an insane amount of damage from turn 5 onward. And that's pretty challenging to try and play around.
Remember Fungalmancer? Remember
Fondly.
when that card felt really, really good and would win a lot of games, but usually not right away? The difference is you play this card and they die right away, or it's also just, +3/+3 in stats compared to Fungalmancer.
It's very different. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna read a tweet from Iksar on April 30th during a different AMA. He was asked about Alex and Talon in the Barons meta being too powerful and ubiquitous. The cards players remember most are cards that start the game and cards that end the game, so in neutral, if we have a finisher, we'd like it to be fringe or only in particular decks. Otherwise, you run the risk of games all feeling like they end the same way. Alex checks all the boxes, but isn't so far over the line that an obvious change is in order. You know it is far over the line that an obvious change is in order. Our good friend Battlegrounds Battlemaster, which I think at a 6-mana 4/4 would be pretty reasonable. And it just works so well with keywords or 0-mana Flesh Giants, which don't have keywords, but I think we're doing fine. Anyways, it feels like a 5-mana Pyroblast a lot of the time, and Paladin is often more. And a lot of the things that we have discussed today are the PC Game article that I got published today. The title of it is "What the Hell Just Happened?" And that is the feeling that I think they want to address in current standard, of how many games where they end and you say, what the hell just happened? And you look at Quest Mage killing you from 20, or you look at OTK Demon Hunter. Well, I guess we know at this point what happened, but it still happened so quickly. And then when you look at Battlegrounds Battlemaster lethals out of nowhere, there's a lot. But also, if we nerf all of these decks, there are a few decks that are current outliers that maybe wouldn't get as much attention. You look at the top 3 at almost any ranked bracket in HS Replay: Face Hunter, Hand Buff Paladin, Elemental Shaman. If you nerf all the combo, maybe control gets better. Or also maybe these 3 decks run away with the meta. And so it becomes the question of, do you nerf 7 decks in the second week? And what would you even do to Face Hunter, Shaman, and Paladin?
I think the Shaman, you could make your reduction 4/5 5 cost.
Granted,
because right now,
yeah,
right now it's often getting reduced and being played on 3, and I think it feels a lot better if it gets reduced and played on 4 or something like that, because it's a huge reduction, right? Isn't it your hand and deck?
Yes.
Lots of things are just your deck in that scenario. So the fact that you're kind of never sacrificing in terms of you get to discount your hand is very different from those types of Kalasethi effects or reduction effects. So that would probably be the way that I could think of. I think if you did something like move Cage Match to 3, that would also have a massive impact, but it might be too much. It certainly kills your 2-drop into Whack-A-Null Hammer curve, which is kind of a bummer to me because it makes Doomhammer even more appealing.
Well, if you went full elemental, you would drop Cage Match. And I think that does make the class a little more interesting, that the decks would look so different now. Because if you were playing Doomhammer, that'd be a really intentional choice. And if you weren't, then you would probably drop Cage Match in the weapon package period. But I also don't know if both decks would survive that. Because you have very few options at the 2 if you like elementals. There just aren't that many choices. And it might just mean we just stop playing Elemental Shaman. It'd be a bigger nerf. Granted, Forgeborn would be a smaller nerf. Doesn't hit the Doomhammer deck at all. But this is kind of the precarious position we're in. And you run into the situation where if you nerf all the damage from hand as well, what about dealing with Quest Overload Shaman, which is already quite strong, and then it loses only to combo, and then you nerf all the combo? Do you then go nerf Quest Overload Shaman? What do you even hit in that deck? This is very hard for Team 5. Very, very, very difficult. And they have a dangerous field ahead of them where if you nerf too much the one way and not enough the other way, you create a worse meta than the one you left. And that's a very real risk, which is why they delayed. But when I put together the list of all the cards I want to touch, if I look at Kolkar Pack Runner to 3 or something like that, you look at Hand Buff Paladin, the Jewel Kit having 2 durability, you look at Shaman hitting Custodian or Granite Forgeborn or something, and then you talk about maybe Dark Lair, maybe Flesh Giant to 10 mana, probably Flesh Giant to 10 mana. And you look at Incander's Flow to 3, and maybe you put Refreshing Spring Water back to 4, maybe you don't. You move Il'gynoth to hitting your own hero and not the enemy hero because delete that deck from the game. And that's the start. Oh, and Battlemaster to a 6 mana 4/4. That's 7 cards just to begin. And that might not be enough. Or it might be too much. I don't even know what you do.
It's a lot of variables, and I think the more variables you change, the more risky it can be. As you say, potentially putting us into, okay, control decks are just really good now, and people hate this transformation. Who knows? I think it honestly could go either way, because the way, at least that I built my control decks, was I still had the quests. So there was inevitability there. It's not like it was just grind you out of resources. That would happen sometimes because a face hunter is generally going to concede before they die to the Juggernaut, right? They've already lost to the armor you've gained. But I don't know. I would like to see certain strategies come up, but I'm sort of okay with the shift right now. I know people don't like doing this, but I'm all right with, I'll play this control deck on ladder, and if I see a mage or a warlock, I'll just concede, and I could still have a winning percentage because, those are pretty awful polarizing matchups, but I will, maybe take all the aggro matchups. It's a weird time, but I agree that OTK Demon Hunter has overstayed its welcome.
The thing that stands out to me the most that I agree with Dean on is just that the games are over a little too quick and too much of it is from hand. So the more I think about it, the more it's how do we make those decks still exist but tone them down just a hair? Because I don't know if Flow even needs to move off of 2, but I know that the experience of losing to it on 2 is extremely frustrating. I don't know if Quest Warlock is something that needs to be addressed, but I know it's quite powerful. Maybe if the Flesh Giants cost 9 or 10, then it would still be a good deck, and maybe not. And maybe if OTK Demon Hunter, if Il'gynoth got nudged up by 2 mana or Moarg went up by 1 mana, maybe we'll just slow it down enough, and maybe the deck can still survive. But outside of the damage from hand, the format doesn't really feel like it has a lot of major pain points, at least in my experience. But then if you nerf those combo decks and it becomes a full aggro format, then I don't know if that's better. So it becomes this very hard push and pull. I don't know, Bodicus, what are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Yeah, I like the idea of just slowing it down a bit, and maybe that's just because I'm playing, I'm playing Quest Shaman, which would benefit greatly if everything was slowed down a bit. I think, personally, the things I would like to see nerfed the most are not necessarily the things that are win rate outliers, and more so than feeling rate outliers. So like Stealer of Souls. I probably lose a lot more games to Flesh Giants than Stealer of Souls, but I feel way worse losing to Stealer of Souls than Flesh Giant, if that makes sense. Same with Il'gynoth, same with Incanter's Flow. Battlemasters probably up there, even though I don't feel like I've lost to that one as much, but that's more likely deck choice than anything else. I did see somebody talk about Raise Dead in chat, and I think that is definitely a card that could cost 1 mana.
Well,
because
except you break Priest if you do that, because they Wand Maker it and then chain forever.
Yeah, but also it costing 0 in Shadow Priest is really freaking good.
It's Raise Dead as printed, as currently. It's a really powerful card and a huge engine with Darkler. I super agree with you. The issue is that if you move it to 1, you kind of break Priest. And a Priest generation chain, I don't know if the Hearthstone community has the emotional bandwidth to handle that again right now. And I don't have the bandwidth to handle the Hearthstone community handling it. It's like, it would be way too much to be back to that.
I feel like there's a big difference between chaining Renews and chaining Raised Deads.
But
Raised Deads has
into
a cost in Priest, right?
But
Raised Dead has a big
Wand
cost in
Makers.
Priest, and yeah, but generating a ton of Wand Makers and an extra card for 1 mana and 3 life, I'm more okay with than generating, like, getting 3 life back every time and generating another spell. Like, you still have to pay that 3 life and the 1 mana every time, right? That's a significant cost, because especially Apotheosis got nerfed, so your big heals are much harder to do. You do have some pretty decent, like, cheap healing spells, but those are almost never in your deck, and so you have to be generating those. Like, it's a much bigger cost than that.
They could try it, right? Like, and I do think that Raise Dead costing mana, and maybe the pool is big enough that it wouldn't be enough of an issue with Wand Maker, right? Because there are 7 1-mana spells right now. You could move that to 8 1-mana spells. You only hit it 12% of the time. Maybe that's enough. And maybe the attrition chains, like the generation chains, it doesn't matter enough right now because this format is very much not about fighting in the value basis. And there have been so many games. I've heard people talk about move Raise Dead to 1 minion. I keep playing Raise Dead for 1 minion right now just to get Darkglare to work. Like, that doesn't turn off. You could actually legitimately nerf Raise Dead by making it just not deal you damage, period. That would be a worse card for Warlock by a huge margin. It would just 0 mana, restore 2 minions to your hand, no other text. It would be a worse card in Warlock. So,
kind of along that line of thinking, people are talking about nerfing Flesh Giant, but I feel like Flesh Giant didn't come out so quickly before. I believe it's the 2/5, the 2 mana 2/5, that really turbos it out.
The Soul Ren build doesn't play that, though. Like, that card is not even in the Soul Ren deck. It's the quest, right? It's the
Okay.
quest. The quest gives you an extra tick every time you clear it, and your deck is full
Right.
of all these cards. But you get 2 quest giant or flesh giant costs 2 less for free when you play the quest on turn 1. Like it starts at base cost 6, and so it just becomes so much more consistent on turn 4 that raising the cost is just to get it out of turn 4 and out of turn 5. And
Wait,
it also
you
helps
mean
out
base
wild.
cost is 4, right? You complete the quest twice, you get 4 reduction.
But I'm only
Well-
counting the lifesteal phase triggers, right? Like those are each lifesteal of deal 3 is deal 3 gain 3 is 1 reduction on flesh giant, right?
No, it reduces it by 2. It deal. Oh no, because no, you're right.
No.
You're right.
I mean,
I was
obviously-
thinking of the. I thought it was essentially just the 2-drop.
Oh, yeah.
That 2-drop that
No, the thing
everybody
that
was
super
playing.
reduces it is when you Minari Mosher the 2-drop,
Oh yeah.
and so
That's
it
that's
attack
4 ticks, right?
hits you for 2, life steal,
It reduced by
and
3.
then it deals damage.
Yeah. It's there's so many synergies that Warlock has access to right now that it seems like you just need Flesh Giant to cost more at base, but also that doesn't stop. Like Stealer, but you're right. That card feels awful to lose to. It feels absolutely like you're breaking every rule that Hearthstone has. And it takes forever as insult to injury that the animations take so long. And if you're on a mobile device or on an older device, you can also just get your turn roped out by the animations. And that's a separate issue. But also, if that card went away, I don't think anyone would be like, man, I really love playing with Stealer Souls. I don't think that's something that people have really formed a strong attachment to.
Maybe 2 people.
Maybe. Oh, Gabby
I
and
mean,
Dead
the quest just amplified it, right? To be useful in standard, but it feels like the quest is so completable without it. I don't know why you would keep it, because if we were having trouble actually completing the quest, I would say that Stealer is beneficial to be beneficial to have as a way to help complete it, but it's so easy. I play it like when I was playing Quest Warlock, it just didn't have any copies of it because you didn't need it because you could complete it so quickly with all of the other options you have.
Yeah. I don't envy Final Design right now because I think there are so many landmines here and so many opportunities for them to make things worse and not better. But I don't think that doing nothing. I think that doing nothing would be wrong. That doing absolutely nothing would be wrong. So we know a nerf patch is coming Tuesday. What do we got? Take your guesses, Bot. What do you think they'll do?
So right before the show, I saw Luna Love on Twitter, a friend of the show, had a really good list, and honestly, I couldn't think of stuff outside of this list, so I would probably just copy this. Warlock Quest heal 2 each tick, so deal 2, heal 2, make it essentially cost a bit more life overall, I think is good. Stealer of Souls Battlecry, next draw costs life, so reduce it to 1. Flesh Giant to 10 mana, Flow to 3 mana, Il'gynoth to 5, Moarg to 3 mana 3/5, Battlemaster to 6 mana 6/6, Kolkar Runner to a 2/2, and Arbor up to 6 mana. I think Arbor up's kind of a sneaky card. It's kind of, I feel like it, on one hand, it's the reason why Druid can win games right now, and on the other hand, it feels pretty bad to lose to. So, I don't know, maybe you get rid of Arbor. If you make Arbor up 6 mana, I don't know how much it actually fixes it, because the decks that are Arbor upping are generating tons of mana anyway. But then I think maybe you raise Dead too. I it's interesting that the list has 3 Warlock cards, and I don't know how big of a problem Warlock is that you would do that, and maybe you could switch one of those with maybe you keep the quest as is and you switch Raise Dead to 1 mana, and then that nerfs Shadow Priest a little bit, which I think is fine because the deck felt pretty powerful even where it was at. But yeah, I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head. I don't know what you would change in Quest Shaman. I like the idea of Elemental Shaman, the Elemental Reducer going up to a 5-drop. Just because getting it coined out on turn 2 is those games are pretty hard to win. But honestly, like, if they nerf nothing, I'm still going to play the crap out of this format.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to for me as well, that I'm going to keep playing even if they touch nothing. So I'm thinking about what would a smaller list look like. And if I were picking just 3 cards, if I were looking at Battlegrounds Battlemaster to 6, Moarg to 3, maybe make it a 3/5, who cares, and Flesh Giant to 10, and stopping there. And that's it, just those 3 cards. Because I was originally thinking about a much, much longer list that included a Face Hunter card, because I do think that deck is probably an outlier, and I don't know the performance at lower MMRs, but the same deck list, except for 2 aim shots, has been tier 1 since week 2 of Barons, so maybe that's something to change, but I don't know if that the play rate is remaining constant despite the deck being powerful and pros don't respect it. Maybe it just stays. Maybe Shaman is allowed to be good right now and have a few different options. Maybe Incanter Slow can be naturally countered by both draw variants in the format being aggressive. Just Moarg to 3 mana 3/5, just Flesh Giant to 10, and just Battlegrounds Battlemaster to 6. Maybe that's enough. Maybe we stop there. Yeah.
For me, I don't want to try and get into the nitty gritty of like every little thing and how, but the ones that I would like to see, I guess I'll say not necessarily specific cards, but the things I would like shaped are, I would like Mage to want to play minions again. And I think that means hitting flow, because it is the major incentive alongside Springwater, but one of the major incentives to not run minions. And I think Fire Mage stuff is pretty cool. I think spell damage with Egwin is pretty cool, and Ignite can still end games in a pretty sweet way with the new Chandler card. So I would love Mage to be playing minions. I think that would be a nice thing. And there's still power there. It just doesn't feel game breaking the way that Flow Spell Mage does. Then I don't want to see OTK Demon Hunter anymore. I'm just really tired of it. I felt like I had to bring it in my lineup this past weekend, and I was really glad that people banned it because I didn't want to play that deck. But yeah, that's been around too long in my mind. Battlemaster just is becoming too much damage too quickly, so could get a little worse. And kind of in that vein, I think I still want Conviction at 2 damage. It still feels like way too much damage. Being able to go 1 mana for generally a fireball, and now with Battlemaster, just a Pyroblast. Like, it's just completely bananas to be able to go 1 mana for +6 attack and then give those things Wind Fury to make it 12 attack. That's just bananas. So Conviction to 2 damage, I think. And I actually like this one on Lunalov's list of Kolkar Runner to 2/2, because I'd hate to see it go to 3 mana. That feels like it kills it in general. But at a 2/2, it feels like much more of a synergy card that's nice if you're spell dense, rather than you just play this in Face Hunter because it's insane. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
It's like Kolkar. I'm not even sure Kolkar is the right card to hit. It is so snowbally, but also like it's super overkept going first, and people just slam it down in 2, and it doesn't work all that well. And I've thought about maybe you hit Wrangler and make it buff by a smaller amount. Maybe you just move Rhino to a 6. Because the times where I feel like I can't stabilize against Hunter are when Kolkar snowballs happen, or when I put down blockers and then they get run over and my face gets hit. and there's like literally no out. And maybe Rhino a turn later would fix that, because the Rhino engine kind of gives the deck that high end, that the mid game swing turn. I don't know.
Yeah, Rhino's really insane. In terms of the shaping for Hunter, I really want the Hunter toolkit to kind of see some love, because that card is pretty great, especially with Kolkar.
It's good. Yeah, with Kolkar it's very good. It doesn't work with Pack Mule the way that anybody wants it to. And that, it's a shame. But a lot of the Hunter cards that they've printed in the past couple expansions are like, maybe Hunter will get to 6 mana and want to keep doing stuff. No, it's not what we want. We don't want to make 7 rats. That's not what we want to do.
Man, Quest Hunter is also so cool, but also you just run out of and you're playing Hunter, so you run out of cards by the time you complete the quest.
It's almost good enough. It won a qualifier, but that was very early on, and it played Malygos and Cornelius. Don't try this at home, kids. Yeah.
You were talking about Cornelius earlier. My favorite thing to do with Cornelius is just let them keep it, and then watch as they start to burn cards.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, they just draw they draw 5 cards a turn every turn that it's alive, and they can't play that many.
Yeah, you can tell who's never played with an Alaneth before, and they get to learn, oh, my deck needs to be low cost and have a lot of burn, and that's not really what's going on with most of Standard right now. Well, we should know more about this. Next Tuesday, we said we would know on the show this week. That turned out to be false. But we should have the nerfs by next Tuesday. And we should have a clearer idea as to what's going on then. But until then, I think we're going to just play a ton of Hearthstone. Because even with the discussions we're having right now, where we've talked about feelings nerfs and whatever, it's still really fun. We're still all having a great time. But I think... Are we winding down? Is that what we're doing right now? Let's go. We have many folks to like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coincede.com. You can find our content info, our show notes, our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coincede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coincede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord, discord.coincede.com. Write into our email at coincede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coincede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coincede. If you'd like some CC swag, head over to our shop at shop.coincede.com. Big thanks to our producers: Number Theory, Tenor Wizard, Doji K, Proby1, Dr. Fish, Crash Cap, Beef Squatch, David P, Snowpack, and Tarot, Lucky, Fade to Black, Walu, and Ponius. Coin Concedes, Chosen Pun, and Fade to Black, thank you for the Twitch Prime subs during the show. Really appreciate you. And then my Coin Concedes this week, like to Coin Concede to, well, Chris Sierra and the team over at Team 5. They sent some cool Alliance swag. And even though I had to allow the Alliance shield in my house, it was worth it, because the stuff inside was really rad. So thank you so much for that, Chris and the team. But always remember, Loktar. PC Gamer, thanks for publishing my article. Also, their editor, Timothy D. Clark, it's his birthday tomorrow, so if you see him on Twitter, please wish him a happy birthday. And Wicked Good, I was on the annual Wicked Hat podcast over on Off Curve, where we go over every deck in the format a week in. And yeah, it was 2 hours and 15 minutes just to cover every archetype. A lot going on in United and Stormwind. Bodigus, how about you?
What is Steve's take on Shadow Priest? Does he not touch it? Is
he
he
likes it.
Shadow Priest?
He got his 5,000. Okay.
Oh,
My
no.
friend Wicked Good, he got 5,000 wins with aggro Shadow Priest. Then he switched over to play Quest Doomhammer Shaman and is killing people with double Rock Biters. Then he posted a screenshot the other day where he went turn 1 Oh My Yogg against a mage, got the Sorcerer's Gambit, and got the Concede and asked what does he become. I don't know what this expansion has done to our friend Wicked Good, but he's changed, and in my humble opinion, it's for the better.
Maybe we can get him playing a few more rogue decks now that he's seen the light of face.
Oh, yes. Though, the rogue decks right now, I like the Quest Rogue, but the other rogue decks right now are a little gross. Poison Rogue, Garrote Rogue, I'm all set. No thanks.
Anyway, so my Coin Concedes, Hat tried to delete this one because he forgot, but coin concede to Hail Skins for coin conceding to me on ladder last
Oh
week,
yeah.
and
Oh
then
yeah. I did read that.
posting in Discord. I appreciate that. Nobody ever has to do that, nor should you do that. I'd rather play out my games, but I appreciate it nonetheless. And then had a real fun game on ladder against Starlax, listener of the show, who was playing Death Rattle Demon Hunter into my Quest Shaman, and Quest Shaman's really good against minion decks, even if those minions Death Rattle a bunch, because all of his minions died, and then he died. It's surprising how many things pop out of those Death Rattles, and it just doesn't matter, because you just kill all their stuff.
Edelweiss?
So I have to ditto your coin concede to Chris, Sierra, and co. because I also received the Stormwind bundle, as it were. A couple pairs of sweatpants, a nice cheese board, which is pretty sweet, having previously worked in a deli, and a couple other goodies. I may bring the, I guess it's not technically Lego, but Lego-esque mosaic that was in there to work on, as we're going to be going to a wedding this weekend. So maybe at the Airbnb we'll have some downtime, and I'll do that.
It's that mosaic brick thing.
Yeah. So yeah, coin concede to that crew. Coin concede to Noglako and my teammates in general for helping me to be able to have lineups 2 weeks in a row for Supergirl Gamer Pro in order to have success there. Worked out great. Hopefully I can pull out at least one win in the championship to be profitable on having to stay an extra day at an Airbnb so that I can actually compete, because we were going to be driving home from this wedding on Sunday, and instead we have to stay longer so I can compete and then drive home on Monday.
Oh, the cost, but like if you ever have a tournament and then reserve your hotel room to leave the night before, you just know that you're not in the right headspace to compete. You gotta book it as though you're gonna win. No happy to be there's. We don't do happy to be there's. You gotta win.
Well, here was the issue, Hat. We made plans for this wedding weekend way before the dates were announced for Supergirl Gamer Pro. So that's why we already had our Airbnb. And then, of course, I'm competing and I qualify and I look at the championship date and I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah. Well, I hope you win. That'd be nice.
Would be nice.
Yeah. And I guess that's gonna do it for us this week. So, keep calm and give your minions Wind Fury. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
You all ready?
I yield for now. I concede.
The outro, the concessions are actually not different. It's the same.
I was gonna say it sounds like it's the same.
I just wanted to show that Ilden was there. All right. I'm gonna stop recording. Hey chat, thanks for hanging out. You're great. Appreciate you tuning in. A lot of people tuned in today. Y'all see that we broke 100 viewers? That never happens. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, there's more Jake Rec. You'll have to listen to the post audio, but it's all 10 concedes. Got him in there, and then 10 intros that Edelweiss will just have to get used to when she's doing the editing.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. Cool. All right, we're gonna jump off here. See you all next week.
Night, folks.